All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to the fabulous downtown Indy Kiwanis Club. Appreciate everybody coming down here today.
Tom's going to do the pledge.
All right. Oh, excellent. All right, we have Tom.
Yep.
Good to
Good
see
to see
you.
you. Thank you.
Tom's going to lead us in the Pledge of
All right,
Allegiance.
you can all stand, please. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Thank you.
We're not breaking the song.
Mary, did you want to share your thought for the day? I'm just reading the script, so.
I didn't read the script, and I'm no good at living, so no.
Okay. Well, I'll read it. Here is Mary's thought for the day. You can borrow a book, but you get to keep the ideas. All right.
That was great, right?
That's very profound. Thanks
You tag team very well.
Yeah. All right, some club announcements. Reminder on the third Thursday of next month, we're going to welcome IBJ reporter Mickey Shuey. And Chuck Lofton will be joining us on the 20th of November. And the Key Clubbers will join us during their fall break on October 16th. So those will be some fun meetings coming up. Upcoming Zoom meetings include Thursday 9/11 Remembrance, the Kurt Vonnegut Museum for Banned Books Week on Thursday, October 2nd, and Larry Dickerson and Jolene Katzenberger with Culinary Crossroads on Thursday, October 9th. So be sure to join us for that. Roger, when's the next lunch bunch?
September the 8th.
Okay.
Monday.
At Iozo's.
And
At Iozo's.
Garden building on South Main.
You want to give a golf update? I'll pass the script on.
The leadership we got here. All right. Who am I? Which one? Oh, so I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I got it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
All right, so besides lunch bunch at IO's, come and join us anytime, please. We have a great time. Runs from about 11:31 on Monday, second Monday of each month. So that's that. We've got a golf outing coming up on September 23rd, and we're gonna have a nice group this year, about 100 golfers. So we're looking forward to that. We've got 20 hole sponsors already. So we're raising some money. We're probably going to net $25,000 to $30,000 this year on that. So we want to thank our title sponsor, NEO Engineers, our silver sponsor, Gelser Investment Management, and our food and beverage sponsors, North Mechanical, Heartland Builders, and Structural Design. And we've got, like I said, we've got about 20 hole sponsors. We're still looking for any prizes. Anybody would like to donate, any corporate identity type giveaways you've got. We're going to give out stuff like that. If you've got them, just please get them to us. Get them to Kelly. She'll let us know where to bring them. Then we got lunch about 2:30 to 3 if you're just going to join for lunch. And that's with Hank's Smoked Brisket, which is wonderful if you've never had it. So we're on the MLK Boulevard. So please sign up. We've still got room to play if you'd like to play. Thank you.
Yeah, he kind of brushed over that, but we're raising $20,000 for Kiwanis, so that's no small deal. So I think 25 to 30. Yeah. So keep those sponsorships coming in. It's excellent stuff. Steve Farrow, you want to welcome our new.
Hi, I want to introduce our newest Kiwanian, Joe Eldridge. Joe, could you come up here? Joe is the Chief Operating Officer for the 100 Black Men here in Indianapolis and has been in that role about 10 years, I think. And previously was, I think he was Development Director for Better Business Bureau, was it? Yeah. North Central graduate, IU graduate, and I think most people in this room are familiar with 100 Black Men, but you know, an organization that's really interconnected with many organizations throughout Indianapolis. So we're really pleased to have someone from the 100 Black Men leadership team, and Joe's a great fit. He's been to many of our programs. Joe, would you like to say a few words? Or maybe I'll pin you first.
I gotta switch pins, man. I got too many pins.
Just put it on the other lapel. Did you ask? You gotta wear both.
Keith.
That means you're going slow. They're wobbly.
There.
Thank you. Thank you. For Steve and everybody, thank you so much for this honor. And Mary, I met Mary maybe 4 or 5 years ago working with the 100, and I think everybody can agree in this room, it's a place where once you get in, they start locking doors and taking keys, and you just can't leave. And so I'm excited to be a part of such a great organization to continue the work of impacting youth. My time here has been phenomenal so far, and I'm just looking to, I often say, and my executive director, Craig Hinchin, who will be speaking, he'll often hear me say, I just carry my corner. I just love the work, I just love making the impact wherever I can, so I'm looking forward to meeting more of everybody here and just kind of doing whatever I can to continue the mission of Kiwanis. So Steve and Mary and Kelly and everybody else who I've met, and we'll get the chance to meet. Thank you all so much for this honor. I look forward to working with you all in the long future. So, thank you.
All right, Mary Bulk is arranged for another social supper at Heidelberg House on September 2nd. So if you're interested and can join, those are usually a fun get together as well. All right, live in person, Mary
Live from
Bulk.
Lincoln Center. All right, where's this place? Where am I?
Just after your name here.
Oh, name, there you go, right there. And I'm even wearing my glasses and I couldn't see it. Okay, so each year the foundation, the Kiwanis Club Foundation, supports a local nonprofit organization serving Indianapolis by providing grants that are $5,000 each. Applications will be open on October the 3rd. You can apply. We encourage all of the not-for-profits to apply to indykiwanis.org/grants. Now I'd like to introduce Claire Bozeman from Brightlane Learning, who will tell us about the impact that her $5,000 grant provided that she received last year regarding literacy intervention in IPS James Whitcomb Riley School 43. So Claire, come on up.
Thank you all. It's so cool to be able to share community success with a group that's so invested in the community, knowing that you'll also hear about you'll hear about that, layering community impact. So at School 43, is one of our 30 partners. We provide academic support intervention to unhoused and homeless youth and families. So we go alongside them and help provide the services that they need to get to grade level and continue to progress through graduation. And so what we did at 43 is we used funds from Kiwanis to, and I'm reading this specifically, was helping us launch the UFly, which is University of Florida Institute Foundation's program to help provide concentrated literacy intervention to students at the school who are not meeting state standards. So in the school, we went from 1 day to 4 days a week. We increased to 52 students from 28 the previous year. We increased sessions provided 321% to over 1,000 sessions. And what I really want you to celebrate, it's not just us making this impact, it is our partners in the community coming around schools that are so under-resourced when they're being asked to do more every day. And so your funding helps the community do more and respond to those needs. And IPS posted the largest gains across the state in their iRead scores, and 43 was the largest in IPS. So they went from 34% in 23-24 to 64% in 24-25. I just wanted to thank you, make sure that you know your funding in all the ways that you'll hear about today made that happen. So thank you for your incredible support.
Thank you.
I'd like to present Craig Kitchen also from
Yes.
100 Black Men to share.
Thank you,
also.
and your quote about books is very, very appropriate today. So really just want to say thank you. 100 Black Men has existed in this community for about 40 years. We're one of the earliest chapters, and our motto is what they see is what they'll be, and our mission is men giving real time to improve development and outcomes of youth in the community. A couple of years ago, we were at School 43, and one man in our group was reading to half of some of the young men in the 4th and 5th grade, and I was reading to the other half. And we had this experience where we came back at the end of that, and we were talking to, they have a wonderful community coordinator, Ms. Delapaz, who makes sure that everybody in the community who wants to help, it's really done in a coordinated fashion. And so one of the first things that our member said after he was reading with those students was, how can I help? When can my wife and I come out? I had a similar experience because one of the young men asked me if he could read the book that I was reading. And one by one, more of these young men started getting up to come and read the book. And I realized that many of them really were behind in their ability to read, and that of all the programs that we can have, all of the programs from African American history to financial literacy to our collegiate group to STEM to the robotics that we do at School 43, all of those things are extremely helpful. But if we don't address literacy at the 3rd grade, then all of that is compromised, because up to 3rd grade you learn to read. After 3rd grade you read to learn. So what we've been doing with 100 Black Men is we take men like the person who came out with me and who want to give their time, and we say, well, how do we make your experience of volunteering meaningful? So at School 43, right now, 3 times a year, every classroom in K through 5, a man from our organization comes out and reads a book. What you guys enable us to do is when we read that book, because sometimes we don't quite get to the end, is we're able to give that book to each kid in that class, and they go home with it and they treasure it. We think we probably all grew up around books, but a lot of these kids, their houses don't really have books. And so what you're enabling them to do is to treasure that book and to see a man from their community just love reading and get excited about reading and model that. So we really appreciate that. Those gains that the school made with great volunteers, with a tremendous Principal of the Year in Ms. Christelle Sam, is phenomenal, but we have work to do. So we want that 63% to be 90% next year, and we want to get to 100% and keep it going. So thanks so much for all that you do in the community, and specifically at School 43 for the gift of the books.
Thank you very much. And it truly is rewarding to hear about the impact that we're having. So appreciate it. Appreciate everything that 100 Black Men are doing too. So thank you. I'm going to call Trina Roundabush up to introduce our speaker.
Thank you. Our speaker today is Dr. Paul Cook, professor of English at Indiana University Kokomo, where he specializes in rhetoric, writing, and digital media studies. His work focuses on one of the most pressing challenges of our time, navigating misinformation in what he calls the post-digital era. an age shaped by the rise of artificial intelligence, the speed of digital networks, and the shifting public trust in our institutions. Dr. Cook's book, Misinformation Studies in Higher Education in the Post-Digital Era, Beyond Fake News, it's an academic title right there.
It's a long title, way too long. If I had one thing to do over again, I would rename that book something shorter.
Brevity.
We'll just call it Beyond Fake News.
Beyond Fake News.
It outlines the bold vision for how universities can respond to the complex interplay between technology, culture, and truth. Through his teaching, research, and public engagement, he equips students and communities with the critical tools needed to recognize, understand, and counter the influence of AI-driven misinformation. But what would his students say about him? Good question. Dr. Cook is one of those rare professors who makes you actually want to think critically. He doesn't just teach rhetoric, he lives it. His classes challenge you to question assumptions, write with purpose, and speak with clarity. You leave his class seeing the world differently. Another says, he's approachable, funny in a dry way, and genuinely cares about helping students improve. Whether you're writing a paper or navigating a tough topic, he'll push you to do better, but always in a supportive way. You won't get away with lazy thinking in his class, but you will become a better writer, speaker, and communicator by the end. I would like to thank Paul for his work and for sharing it with us today. Additionally, I would like to thank Google's Gemini AI tool for this wonderful introduction.
Unbelievable. Oh my gosh.
So you gotta log in again.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody, and thank you for that wonderful introduction, Google Gemini. Oh yeah, no, I thought it was remarkably accurate. Yeah, that's why I was like, wow, this is. Thank you guys so much for having me to speak today. I am Paul Cook. I am a professor of English at IU Kokomo. I've been with IU for about 13 years, but I've been teaching in higher education for about 20 years at various institutions, including a couple of large SEC schools in the South. I got my PhD from the University of South Carolina, and the reason I mention that is because I started out as I am a writing teacher first and foremost, and that was kind of my way into artificial intelligence, was thinking about how important it is, number one, that students, as my friend here said earlier, I love that line. We help me out here. We up to third grade, we learn to read, and then from then on, it's about reading to learn. Reading, and I would add to that, writing to learn as well. And so what got me interested in AI was, and I'll talk about this a bit more later too, but was thinking about just kind of my concern, my anxiety, that what if students miss out on that opportunity that everyone in this room has had, right, to learn to write, to use writing as a technology to explore, to expand what we know, to learn new things, to test out ideas and hypotheses, and in some cases to actually figure out what it is we want to say. I know we've had this, I'm sure folks have had this, where you're working on something, you're writing something, you're in the moment, and you're like, that's what I wanted to say. So anyway, that's my little intro of how I got into thinking about artificial, because writing is such an important part of what I do and my, it's an important part of learning how to be human, I believe. So, a couple of quick questions. Number one, how much time do I have? I want to make sure I don't go over.
30 minutes.
30 minutes, okay, I can do that. And then secondly, quick show of hands, if you've interacted with AI, ChatGPT, some kind of chatbot or some kind of platform in the past. Okay, so just about everyone. What I want to focus on in the first kind of third of this presentation, some basics about AI, some basics about large language models, how this technology works. There's a couple of themes that will kind of run throughout this talk. When we're thinking about how to use AI effectively, and there have been a ton of changes. In fact, just last week, ChatGPT was released by OpenAI. But in general, when we think about using AI, we want to think about it as an assistant, as a thought partner. Ethan Malik at the University of Pennsylvania has a book out called Co-Intelligence, where he talks about AI as a co-intelligence. It should be an enhancement, not a replacement for human thinking. So, there's a phrase in AI, keep the human in the loop. You want to be the human in the loop because AI is stronger with the human in the loop. So it's an enhancement, not a replacement. And as powerful and fast as AI is, it is not a human creative director. It is not a writer. It is not a social media expert, videographer. It can create really convincing content, obviously. But that does not mean that it is, and we'll talk more about this, that does not mean that it is thinking in the same way that you and your brain thinks, right? It seems that way, but it's actually a really neat trick. And so the balance, or the challenge, I believe, comes in finding this balance between harnessing the efficiency of AI, and of course, anyone who's used this technology or one of these platforms, you know how efficient this technology is and how much time it can save you. But balancing that with maintaining kind of the uniqueness of you and of us as the human species, right? Because I for one, happen to think that we are still a pretty important species on this planet. Okay, so I hope folks can see this. Just a few things about what large language models, by the way, large language models, or LLMs, is kind of it's the term for the technology that is underlying ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, right? Think of those as name brands. Those are all like sort of the name brands of the platforms. But LLMs, the technology that powers the large language models, that's the engine underneath the hood that's making all of this possible. And what they do, what LLMs do, you might think about it as a really advanced version of what you already have on Microsoft Word and have been using for a very long time, and that is predictive analytics. So when you're using Microsoft Word, and they've had this feature on there for, 10 years or more, you're writing a sentence or you're working in Outlook and you're working on an email, what does it do? It says, hey, here's what might come next in the sentence, right? That's what LLMs do, but on a much larger and kind of souped up scale. So when you put something into ChatGPT, what it's basically doing is it is throwing all of this data at the wall to see what is most likely to come next in this sequence. And it does it so effortlessly and kind of seamlessly that it seems as though this thing is actually listening, hearing, talking, responding, etc. Right? Which in fact, if you've been following the news lately, there have been some kind of interesting stories about folks that have developed relationships with chatbots, right? That have developed really close personal, I guess the word is friendships with some of these machines, which is really interesting. And I think in some ways kind of points as to what might unfold in the future. So that's what it's doing. It's predicting the next word in a sequence, and in so doing, it's generating fluent, plausible sounding text on virtually any topic. And this is one of the things about ChatGPT and LLMs too, is that with the outputs that they give you are so confident, It's like you read it and you're like, wow, this is written in such a confident tone, it must be true. We'll talk more about some of the ethics and the truthfulness stuff later. And it's basically, in using these predictive analytics, it is remixing things that it has seen, right? So it's taking data that it's been trained on, these enormous data sets, which include everything from books from 200 years ago that have been digitized and uploaded to Google, Gutenberg Project. It includes the entire document cache from the Enron scandal of the 1990s. It does. ChatGPT was actually trained on some of that data. Now, why was it trained on that data in particular? Because when these folks were developing these technologies, they just wanted to get their hands on as much data as they could possibly get without getting sued. And so they went out onto the open web and they found as much open access data that they weren't going to get sued for as they possibly could. The Enron scandal was one of those things that had all that documentation had been made public. It was out there for the public to take. They took it, they trained on it, right? So next time you're using ChatGPT or any LLM, remember that these things are being trained on all sorts of data, some of it good, some of it wholesome, some of it, some of it not so much. Now here's what they don't do. And this is important, again, because these machines are so seamless and they're so convincing. LLMs do not think, reason, or understand in the way that humans do. Now, you may have heard of something called AGI, or Artificial General Intelligence, okay? This is kind of the white whale, if you will, for folks working in this space. AGI, we can talk more about this later, but basically AGI is it is the idea that one day we may be able to create artificial intelligence that can actually think in a way like a person does, but we are not at that point yet. So when you interact with these machines, it's very important to understand that this is not about, it's not listening to you, it's not understanding you, even though it seems that way. Connected to that, it doesn't know about true or false. It doesn't understand the concept of accuracy or inaccuracy. It cannot verify facts or cite, like real-time sources. In fact, if you ask it about like something that happened just yesterday, or like something really recent, it'll oftentimes get tripped up, and that's where you'll get hallucinations. Hallucinations, by the way, is the term that we use when we talk about when ChatGPT doesn't know and it just kind of makes up something that sounds really plausible and convincing, which it does a lot, although some of the newer models do it less, they say. And then finally, it does not have beliefs, emotions, or awareness. So should you trust it? Well, while preliminary studies suggest that ChatGPT-5 and newer models are more accurate than some of the older ones, you really should think about using AI like a fast, it is very fast, well-read assistant, not as a truth engine, certainly not as a therapist. And you always want to make sure that you double check. I mean, therapy is expensive, so it is tempting. But you always want to make sure that you double check facts, especially in high stakes contexts. You may have heard about it, maybe a year and a half ago, there was an attorney who had filed a bunch of briefs that he had used ChatGPT to generate, and it had basically hallucinated a bunch of case law that did not exist. So you gotta do your homework. And that's what I mean when I say the human in the loop, right? You can't just outsource all of this to, all of your thinking to these machines, right? That's not. And so what I want to do today is talk a little bit about how this works and then give you some pointers for how to use this stuff most effectively. Generative AI is a specific kind of AI, Gen AI, generative AI, that is what most folks are thinking about when they think about ChatGPT and these other LLMs like this, Copilot, et cetera, right? It's a type of AI that creates new data based on patterns, that it makes inferences based on its training data, the data that it's been trained on. Again, it's been trained on lots and lots and lots of data. It's primarily a predictive engine. And when we say data, we're talking about not just text, but also images, sound, video, code, and in fact, these platforms, these machines can, it's kind of showing you here, they can create code, they can create text very quickly, they can create images, in many cases like bespoke images, people with 2 fingers, things like this. It can create video. It can create really convincing video. These are some videos that have all been created by AI. Really convincing video. It can create sound. So you won't be able to hear this because we don't have speakers on. But basically, what I did is this is a really neat little program. You can record a voice sample of yourself talking, right? And then you could set up it up almost like an answering service, so that when someone called you, you could have a series of prompts, and it could read those prompts in your voice. So mimicking your voice, right? Coming up with prompts, and this is something that I played around with. Some of my colleagues have played around with. It's pretty neat. I'm sorry I don't have the audio here to share with you. And then I've got a couple of videos here that just talk a little bit more about was that for, sorry. That talk a bit more about kind of the nuts and bolts of this. But because we don't have the audio, I think I'm gonna skip over these, but I'm happy to talk a little bit. I mean, a lot of this is kind of in line with what I've said already about just the kind of the nitty gritty of LLMs and how they operate as predictive machines. So, and I will share this slide deck, by the way, with everyone, so please do feel free to watch those later. There's some links and so forth and so on. Some of the pitfalls and challenges, both from a pedagogical standpoint, so like teaching, from a teaching standpoint, but also from a workplace writing standpoint, that I've heard from folks that I've talked to in my travels and so forth and so on. A homogenization of content. So one of the things you've noticed about a lot of LLMs, a lot of, like ChatGPT and others, is that the output that they produce, a lot of it sounds very similar. It's been described as bland, it's been described by some as corporate, there's lots of adjectives that we could use, right? But, like if you see AI generated text, there's a joke about it, no one can use M dashes anymore because AI uses M dashes all the time. And so now people aren't using M dashes because they don't want to be seen as, they don't want someone thinking that they used AI, right? So it has certain hallmarks, and one of the concerns is, well, if our company, if our organization, if we're using ChatGPT to generate all of our marketing materials, for example, then is that going to have a negative impact on our brand, our voice, right, as an organization? Loss of brand tone or authenticity, right? So people, this kind of bland content. Obviously, inaccuracies and hallucinations are an issue. And here's one that I think a lot about as an educator: over-reliance on the technology and skill atrophy. Right, so I kind of joke about it in terms of, like we talk about taking the stairs instead of the elevator, right? Because it's better for you to take the stairs, even though you've got an elevator that can do it much faster and more efficiently. That's kind of a way that I'm sort of trying to talk to students about this now, right? Is that, although it's not a perfect analogy, but there is certainly fear there, right? That, what's going to happen to our skills if we're not actively reading, writing, and keeping up with these skills? And I'll tell you something, I've even noticed it in my own work, and I'll be honest here, like I have to answer, as many of you do, I'm sure, a lot of my job is writing and sending emails. And it is extremely tempting, especially with a lot of these like boilerplate emails, right? It's very tempting to just say, ChatGPT, can you give me like a 3-paragraph response so that I can get this off and I can kind of save my brain function for something else that I'd rather be doing, right? But what are the ethical questions that raises, for example, right? What are the, not just ethical, but like what are some of the, like I said, this loss of authenticity, right? What are some of the, kind of social questions that this, ethical questions that this raises, PR questions that so these are things, I don't have answers to these things, but there's certainly things to think about and things that we can talk about in the Q&A as well. So economic and workforce transformation, most of this data is coming from a McKinsey report that just came out back in April, so it's pretty fresh. They're now saying they've sort of recast this a bit. 4.4 trillion to the global economy. Could automate 60 to 70% of routine work tasks. By the way, I've linked to this so you can download that entire report. And this is the question that I get probably more than any other question is like, what is AI going to do to the workforce? What is it going to do in terms of automation, jobs, things like this? Someone earlier was talking to me about software and coding. We've seen are seeing a lot of layoffs, job losses, tightening of the market in the tech sector, for example, because the need for coders just isn't what it was 5 or 10 years ago. And a lot of folks, well, I'll just go to this next slide. This is from the McKinsey report, and so I'll just read, I thought it was a nice quote. It says, the history of major economic and technological shifts shows that such moments as the AI moment that we're in right now can define the rise and fall of companies. Over 40 years ago, the internet was born. Since then, companies including Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft have attained trillion-dollar market capitalizations. Even more profoundly, the internet changed the anatomy of work and access to information. So now we have email that is like consumes our lives, right? Thank you, internet, right? AI now is like the internet many years ago. The risk for business leaders is not thinking too big, but rather too small. And if you remember in the early 90s, when the internet was just kind of getting online, and people were starting to experiment with AOL and things like this, right? There was, it was an interesting moment, not unlike the one that we're in now, where, and I would liken the AI moment, in terms of its significance, I would liken it to a moment like the invention not the invention of the internet, because that actually happened way back in the 60s and 70s with ARPANET, but the commercialization of the internet, pushing it out to mainstream America, ordinary people, right? I think that this moment that we're in right now is very much of a piece of that moment 40 years ago. Other commentators, other analysts have compared the AI moment to the invention of the steam engine, right, in the 19th century, which completely revolutionized transportation and life itself, right? That's the thing, right? It wasn't just that the steam engine revolutionized how we get from point A to point B. It also completely changed everything about culture and how we relate to each other. And that is something that AI, I think, is poised to do in a multitude of ways, which we can talk about. This is some data here on kind of which AI models are companies paying for currently. So as you can see, this is kind of small, so I apologize. But OpenAI, 32.4%, far and away. OpenAI, of course, is ChatGPT. Anthropic, way down here. xAI, Google, DeepSeek, some of these. And in the newest McKinsey report, the one that came out in April, the most important finding was that by and large, U.S. employees are using AI. They are on board with AI. They are excited in some ways about AI. But that employers and organizations are still playing catch up, are still figuring out how exactly this is going to work, how to make it efficient, how to make sure, how to prevent, hallucinations and things like this. Some more data, share of US businesses that pay for a subscription to AI models, platforms, et cetera. Again, I apologize for the very small graph. But again, there are ethical considerations, including intellectual property, a lot of this stuff. I mentioned earlier a lot of the data was, stuff that was sort of open access data, right? Some of it wasn't. I mean, some of it was proprietary. So there's that. Privacy issues, authenticity. I'll talk a bit later about mis and disinformation and how AI really ramps that up, and then this kind of broader societal impact. So all important things to think about with this new technology. And then some limitations as well. Although again, the tools are improving. One of the biggest issues is that there is limited transparency, especially in terms of the data that these machines are being trained on, and obviously the proprietary algorithms that these companies use. That's a big one. Limited subset of info, older data. The tools are improving. In fact, the biggest thing with ChatGPT, I don't know if you guys have been following the new release of ChatGPT. The biggest thing with ChatGPT is that what they did is they kind of put like an automatic transmission on it. So that now what it does is you tell it your task and it basically figures out for you which model is the best model to use for your particular task and whatever parameters you put in, right? And then it basically says, okay, I see what this person's asking for. Let me choose a model that I think is going to work best, most efficiently for what this person wants for this particular task. Okay, now I want to give you guys some news you can use. I want to give you some practical tips and tricks for how to get the most out of your interactions with ChatGPT and with LLMs. This is pretty platform agnostic, so this advice will work pretty much across any platform. It is text-based. I kept this all really on the level of text because that's what most users are most interested in. But remember that these machines can do a lot more than just text. They can do video, they can do other things as well. So keep that in mind. All right, so here are some things that you might want. And again, I will send this out so you'll have access to this. I encourage people to talk to Gen AI tools, to AI tools, as if it is a person. So talk to it as, understand that it's not, right? But talk to it as though it is a thought partner, a co-intelligence, an assistant, an intern, however you want to say it. But tell it what kind of person you need for it to be, based on whatever the task is at hand, right? Give the tools explicit instructions on how you want it to complete the task, right? So this is not a one and done kind of prompting thing. This is a back and forth, right? And engage in a back and forth conversation with the Gen AI tool. So here's the acronym that I want everyone to remember. CORE, C-O-R-E. CORE stands for context, output, role, and example. So every time you task, that's what it's called, tasking. Every time you task with ChatGPT or Copilot or one of the other LLMs, right, you want to prompt engineering, right? You want to come up with the most effective prompts. So you always want to think about context. What is the necessary background information? More is always better. More detail, more information is always better. Output, what is it that you want the AI to give you? Do you want it to give you an email? Do you want it to give you like a slideshow? Do you want it to give you an outline? Some ideas for something that you might come back to later. What role do you want the AI to take on? Right? So do you want it to be, do you want it to pose as an expert? Do you want it to be, like an assistant, And then finally, give it examples. It's like, for example, I'm looking for something that would be kind of like this, right? And tell it explicitly. I forgot to mention this earlier. One of the things that we don't talk about enough with AI that makes it truly, what really brought this into the mainstream, by the way, was the natural language processing capabilities of AI. So what that means is basically what really makes this, ChatGPT so amazing is that we can talk to them not through code, but through natural language. We can talk to it just like a person. And that's one of the really significant kind of moves that ChatGPT made. The technology existed before 2022, November 2022, when OpenAI released ChatGPT, right? But it's the natural language capabilities that really kind of took the lid off the box, so to speak. Okay, so I'll just give you guys a few examples. Here is an example of a prompt that doesn't have any, just kind of a very basic elementary prompt. Give me a social media post for back to school. Okay, well that's not giving up any really additional information. Let's add some context in there. I'm planning a series of I'll make this relevant to Kiwanis, right? You can say like, look, I'm planning a series of Facebook and Instagram posts for Kiwanis of Indianapolis, right? And we're going to use these as part of our kickoff. The primary purpose is to provide new and returning members with information about all the wonderful talks. There was one talk coming up on soon that I actually want to come back to. It's interesting. Give information on all these talks, right, and get them excited about our luncheons and our events this year. So you've given it all of this context. You've defined the task. You've specified the audience, right? This is going out to people who follow Kiwanis on social media, who are on the email list, including key details, right? You're going to get a much better result from that. And then I just gave some things here. When I do this longer version of this, I give fix these prompts, right? Give these context, right? Use more context. So always provide a context for your tasking. Okay, output. So summarize our company's benefit plans from the attached detailed documents. By the way, LLMs, one of the things they're absolutely the best at is looking, what they do is they look for patterns in information. That is what they do. Information here being mostly language. They look for patterns in text and language. So they're really, really good at you just throwing a whole bunch of data at it and saying, look for patterns here, find patterns for me, show me where the patterns are. They're really good at that stuff, right? And so you want to use it for those kind of applications. So this is a good use of ChatGPT, but you want to give it as much information about the output as you possibly can. So, summarize our company's health benefit plans from these detailed documents that I'm uploading. Do it in bullet points. Use a simple, approachable tone for employees with no background in insurance. Include key features of each plan, such as coverage limits, copay details, and HAS contribution limits, all this, health insurance stuff, while avoiding technical jargon. Focus on making benefits easy to understand and highlight the most appealing aspects, right? And so you've given it, it's like, I'm telling you, this is exactly what I want you to give me, right? And then, you see what it gives you. Although remember, it's not a one and done, so don't think that whatever it gives you is like, well, it's giving me the answer, so now I'm done. No, you can talk to it again, prompt it again, ask for more. It's like, I don't like that, I want this. It's a back and forth. All right, create an exercise plan. It'll do it, but it will ask you questions, follow-up questions, right? Instead, imagine that you are a certified personal trainer with experience in strength training and injury prevention. Create a customized 4-week workout plan for someone who is new to exercise, right? Again, you're telling it, this is what I want you to do, or how to imagine yourself, right? Imagine that you are a fitness instructor. Imagine that you are, have fun with it. Have fun with it. And then finally, examples. So, I know a lot of folks that use ChatGPT to generate bedtime stories to tell their kids at night. Excellent use of this, by the way. Write a bedtime story for a 6-year-old about a talking dog who teaches kindness. Keep it under 300 words, use simple language, and make it sound like Dr. Seuss. Right? So providing examples of what you want it to do. So I've just shown you how you can combine these things. And in fact, I always tell people, when you're prompt engineering, always start out by giving the machine a role to play. It's more fun for you, and I suspect it's more fun for the machine too. But as a travel, imagine pretend you are a travel expert who specializes in budget-friendly European vacations. Right? Give me a 7-day itinerary for a solo traveler in Italy. I dig history, art, local food. I hear there's a really good Olive Garden there. Structure it as a day-by-day itinerary. These are the dates that I'm leaving, blah, blah, blah. Use a style similar to Lonely Planet, which is a popular travel guide, or Rick Steves on PBS. Make it practical and easy to follow, right? So you've taken context, output, role, and examples, core, and you've combined all those elements into a prompt. And this right here, if you plug this into ChatGPT 5, it'll give you a pretty decent little Italian vacation itinerary. So, some other things. As a professional chef specializing in home-cooked meals, create 3 quick and healthy dinner recipes based on the photo of my pantry. So one of the cool things about the LLMs too is you can take pictures. I'll tell you, this morning, I live in an old house here in Indianapolis. And years ago, someone painted, caulked, nailed shut every single window in my home. And so I took a picture of the window and I said, ChatGPT, I'm trying to help me figure out how to open this window, because the weather's nice and we wanted to open the windows. Help me figure out how to open this window. And it said, well, it looks like you're dealing with blah, blah. It's not uncommon for people in older homes to, which I don't know why this is, but it's not uncommon to paint shut the windows, blah, blah, blah. So, and it told me, now, full disclosure, it hasn't worked yet. I haven't gotten that dang window. But I'm still working on it. But, you take a picture, you give it, say, tell me how to get this window open. So just a few things in closing. Remember, prompting is an iterative process, all right? Break down complex tasks. So if you're asking it, I'm gonna upload, 3 novels, and I want you to do X, Y, and Z, that's a very complex task that you might want to break up, but certainly try it and see what you get. Encourage creativity and experimentation. I mean, I really encourage people to, especially if you're new to these machines or if you're maybe a little anxious about them, I really encourage people to just explore with them, play with them. Just like in the early days of computing, the early days of the internet, right? This is how we kind of learned. We just got on AOL and we messed around in chat rooms and news groups until we kind of figured it out, right? Same thing 40 years later with this. And adapt. I've also got some links and things here that I'll show you guys there's some excellent publications, some really good newsletters that folks put out that do a lot of excellent analysis of new trends and like new things that come out. So I'll show you some of those as well. But just some other ideas, things that you can use it for in everyday life. Productivity and work efficiency, email assistance, meeting notes. One of the things that it's really good on if you have Zoom meetings. Yeah, so you know where I'm going with this. And you turn on the record feature. Now get everyone's permission first. But if you're recording a meeting, you can take the recording of that meeting and upload it into ChatGPT, and it will give you a blow by blow. You can say my favorite is who talked the most in this meeting, and then what it will do is it will go through and it will rank. Say Mark Nickerson talked the most.
Kelly, don't do that.
And then number 3, and it will show you Mark talked 90% of the time. Kelly talked 70% of the time, but it will break it down for you, and it will show you, who. So that's something fun to do. But it can also, when you have folks that can't, more practically, when you have folks that can't make it to a meeting, and you want to send them, or if you just have someone doesn't want to take notes, you can have it basically take notes on the meeting for you. Learning and personal growth, basically using this thing as a tutor is a really helpful thing as well. Entertainment, we talked a bit about that. It's kind of fun to play around with. And then where can you go to learn more about this stuff? So a couple of things I want to show you guys. These are brand new modules that myself and some colleagues at around Indiana University. So several campuses came together to put this together. Initially it was called Gen AI Essential Skills. We had to change the name. Now it's called AI Modules in Your Classroom. But don't let the name fool you. This is not just for students. This is for anybody, and it's open to anybody. All you have to do is, there's a link here, and you can also take a picture of this QR code. It will take you to IU Expand, which is IU's continuing education portal. These are all free modules that you can download, you can take, and you even earn a little certificate at the end that you can put on LinkedIn, or show off. But we put these together, and these are all really about using AI to help you become a better writer and a better workplace communicator, is what these modules are really about. And there's a lot of stuff in there on prompt engineering. There's a lot of stuff in there on the nuts and bolts of AI and how it works and the technology. And then if you're more concerned with some of the social and cultural impacts of AI and kind of the post-truth era, Mind Over Chatter 2.0. These are some modules that I put together with some folks at IU Kokomo there are 6 of them total, and they deal with some of the common cognitive biases and pitfalls that all of us kind of have biologically. For example, it talks about mere exposure effect, which is this idea that if you've been exposed to something if you've heard something before and you hear it again, you're more likely to believe it, right? If you've heard it before. Confirmation bias, there's a module on artificial intelligence, there's a module on the paradox of authority. So these are a little more student-centered, but you could, I think they're pitched at lots of different folks. So please, I don't have a QR code for this one, but there is a link. So please check these out. All of these are available through IU Expand. And I'm happy to take any questions. I'll try my best to answer them. Thank you so much for having me today, everyone. I appreciate it. This is my contact info, paulcook@iu.edu. I would love it to have folks reach out. Yes, sir.
I have a question. Because I've started using more recently, and the concern I have is if you put in, let's say, personal information,
Yeah.
so I'm asking for tax advice or something, how concerned should you be about that?
Are you using ChatGPT or another platform?
ChatGPT.
So are you using the free version or
Yes, the free version.
So if you pay the $20 a month, it gives you a little more memory. And what that will do is it will remember more of what you put in there. So like what it does is it has a certain amount of memory. Okay, it's not unlimited by any means. But it will, over time, it will remember things that you've said. So it will remember things about your tax situation, for example, if you've put that information in there. And it does that so that it can recall that information later. If you don't want that in there, there is a way to go into the settings and delete it. And in fact, I believe in ChatGPT, there's also a setting that you can set up to where it will not remember. And so my recommendation would be either don't use it at all for those kinds of sensitive applications, or be very careful with that. Yeah, I mean the whole data, the data and privacy thing is a very serious concern. And even even turning the memory off, I would still use caution, because the fact is, think about it this way: we know as much about these corporations as we know about any corporation, right? So you got to be careful with what you put out there. Yes, sir.
Well, I was going to ask, as a teacher, what do you think the impact is on students or people who have not really learned the basics of writing and grammar, and they become reliant on cut and paste technologies like I kind of consider this to be? Does it impact their ability, their cognition and judgment to filter out what's authentic and what's not?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I will try my very best to answer this. I mean, this is obviously the question, and this is the thing that concerns me more than anything else, frankly. There's all these doomsday scenarios, AI taking over the nuclear codes, right? That concerns me. But that concerns me in a sort of existential, we're all gone in a flash of hot white light, right? But what really concerns me is I don't want to live in a world with other people who have not developed basic cognitive skills. Because that's dangerous to me in my well-being. And that's, I think, what you're getting at is, are we headed towards a situation, where half the population or more, because they will have offloaded a lot of their thinking to these machines, will not have these kind of basic literacy skills? That is a concern. It's a huge concern. I mean, it's like I said, that's the one that keeps me up at night. And as an educator, I mean, I can only do what I can do. Now I'm teaching so I've got classes start on Monday. I've got 20 freshmen in a first-year writing course waiting on me. Next Tuesday afternoon, 1 o'clock. And let me tell you what we're going to do. I'll just tell you, we're going to try something that Neil Ferguson, the writer, talks about. It's called Starship and Cloister. I've tried this with my 13-year-old. It's failed miserably. But so I have every reason to think that it will work better with a group of 18-year-olds that I don't know and have never met. But the basic idea is that we live in the starship, and the starship is we have access to all of this transformative technology. But there's also important things to be gathered from the cloister, and the cloister is basically the name for just old-fashioned being in the same room as other human beings, reading, print, writing, that's the cloister, right? It's how humans have basically communicated and been together for thousands of years. And so in my classroom, what I want to try to do this semester is set up a cloister starship. So I don't want to say, because you don't want to set up these kind of prohibitions and say, you will not use ChatGPT, we're not going to talk about it, we're not going to, that's not healthy, that's not productive, okay? But at the same time, you don't want students just using this stuff all the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up, in class, we're going to do cloister sessions where it's just about no phones, no computers, no AI, none of that stuff. Paper, pen, listening, talking, reading, all of the wonderful things that happen in a writing classroom. And then when it's time for us to plug into the matrix and use AI or computers or whatever, then we go to Starship mode. And now you can use your computer, you can use whatever, right? And what the idea behind this is that it helps to set up a boundary, first of all, which is, I think, healthy for young people to have those kinds of boundaries with media. Number two, it gives you an opportunity to say we're in cloister mode now, so we're going to work with these skills that are very important, right? These sort of foundational skills of literacy, of reading and writing, et cetera, of listening to other people, which is important as well, right? Active listening, you know. But then when it's time to augment that with AI and technology, we know that we have these tools. We're not afraid of them, right? We're not, you know, it's not, oh, you know, don't take my picture, right? It's not that. But we have to use them in a way that is responsible and that is ethical and that, you know, is smart, right? That's what I'm going to try to do. If you have me back in December, I'll tell you how it went. Any other questions?
Real quick.
Yes, sir.
From you mentioned free ChatGPT
Uh-huh.
or the subscription. Is one more protected than the other as far as that information getting out to the world?
Yeah, I don't know, and OpenAI has not been very open about that. I don't know. I mean, and there's also a $200 a month version as well. So they've got the free version, they've got the $20 a month version, and the $200 a month version. But that's an excellent question, and it's certainly something to look into. I mean, and one of the things that concerns me too about this, and I think your question kind of gets at this, is that, you know, we're already living in a world where everything's more expensive all the time. And I'm also concerned in the way that AI is being used in customer service applications. I'm concerned that we're headed for a world where people who can afford it will get to interface with humans, and everybody else has to interface with the machine. You know, think about that in terms of customer service, for example, right? It's like, well, you're a premium platinum member, sir, so you get to talk to a person. Right? Well, I'm sorry, you're using our free version, ma'am, so you're gonna have to talk to the machine, and if that can't figure it out, then I don't know. And you guys know, because you've called customer service, and you know how bad those AI interfaces are. Now, you know, they're getting better, but yeah, so that that's something I think about as well, right? Is that, you know, what's gonna happen in 10 years when this stuff is so ubiquitous, and, you know, and there's this kind of, you know, there's this further segmentation of society, right? Based on who can pay for what. Yeah.
All right, I got to call time.
Oh, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you.
very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The Kiwanis Foundation of Indianapolis will be making a donation in your honor to Hear Indiana. They deliver hope and resources to Hoosier children with hearing loss. And we usually close the meeting from the One America signboard, but I saw a quote from Stephen Wright. I don't know how many people grew up with Stephen Wright, but I think his stuff's pretty hilarious. And given what has been in the news this week, I thought this was a funny quote because he did this a long time ago. I'd kill for a Nobel Peace Prize.